All right. You guys should be able to see and hear me. Make sure everything looks right on this side. Prep for Unit 14, that's right. That's what we're working on. All right. So, see how many people come back with me after my vacation. I have been in Mexico since the, I don't know, 10th or something like that. So I've been out of town for quite some time. And coming back today, we're getting right back into the swing of things. We're getting back into all the Linux that we need to do. And actually, I have a couple of things I need to set up right now as we're talking. So let me go grab these. Refer to your Unit 5 scan of the systems. Interesting. Oh, okay. So they scanned for some systems in Unit 5. Yeah, I forgot about that. And it looks like we got a broken picture. I might need to make sure that the guys know about that. So, let's see. I might have to... Let's pull up Discord here real quick. Yeah. All the things we do in Discord are free, by the way. I haven't mentioned that in a while. And all of those things are up here in the top left. I think it's top right if you're on your phone, all the events. But I need to send this here to the writer's room and say, I think there's a broken image at there. All right. Let them work on that a little bit. How's it go, sending grounds? Yeah, it's been a while, man. I was in Chichen Itza, full on sending it in Mexico. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Chichen Itza, but that's a pretty wild place. Pretty fun little place down in Mexico where you can climb up. And then there's this interesting thing that happens when you're there, where if you kind of, you clap your hands, it goes up, and the sound, I can show you guys, right? People jumping around and stuff. But right here, where this person's standing, it's actually on the other side. Hold on, I'll show you what side it's on, because those are all smaller holes. This side has the big holes right here. Let's see if we can just open that image up. No, not the link. Open the image. Yeah, right at the top of this one. So you stand down at the base of this, anywhere in a straight line out from the steps, and you clap. The clap goes up and it reverbs back down with the exact sound of one of the birds that lives in the area. It's wild. It was really cool. Yeah, we went. We were in Cancun, and then we were wrestling down in Playa del Carmen, and then we were hanging in just in the resort and stuff, and then we went that last day. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, that was kind of fun. That was a fun little part of the trip. I'll share pictures and stuff. I bought a luchador mask when I was down there. And the only thing, I told the wife, there was only one thing that I really missed out on, guys, is I should have taken a picture with the luchador mask like this behind the wife, like that whole Coldplay thing that's been playing out the last week. That would have been better than the picture we got. But we got a pretty good picture of me and the wife. And then, I mean, we got all kinds of pictures and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do a stream later that'll be showing some of that stuff. But what I need to put together today is this. I need to come up here to our discussion posts here, and I need to put together the discussion posts for the people doing the course, right? So we don't have a lot. I mean, I don't even know if we have anybody technically participating in the course anymore, but I'm still going to run it out to the end because that's what I do. But let's make a new post here, and the post is going to be, it'll be called admin Unit 14 discussion post 1, and I guess we can't really keep that, but here's the thing. Here's the question. 5 scan systems. Yeah, so there's that quote, and then there's make an inventory of the servers any way you want. What format did you choose? And then what other things are you going to do? Okay, so this will be the general post. Oh, and then I need to fix that post because I always forget this when I make new posts. Is you always have to go edit the tags on them and add, because it's an admin course post. All right, so then let me grab this. There you go. This. And then let's go make the other one real quick. So new post. This will be post 2. And this one will be right here. Discussion. Oh, there's a discussion post 3 in this one. All right. Well, drift on your server configurations, and then there's that. Okay, so that's admin course. We're doing that, and yeah, so we're getting that going. Sorry guys, I'm still adjusting to being back, I guess. Let's go to discussion post 2, and we'll make a discussion post 3. And this one will be called... Yeah, okay. Oops. Ansible module forget, or use that HPC deploy. What's in the repo? What's the role setup? Okay. By the way, guys, I'm going to talk about all these here in a second. We'll actually go through them. I'm not just gonna show you these and not do them. We're gonna do them in the course later today too, which is on the Discord. But also, I'll talk about these things that we're doing right here. Admin course 3. All right. So now people have the discussions for admin 1, 2, and 3 for unit 14. Good. So this week's set up as far as that goes. So let's go look through these real quick. And then I also have things to fix in the home lab. There's some servers. We should probably do this first. Let's hit an Ansible. We'll see what nodes are not responding. So we got Rocky 11 and 13. Everything else is good, and I think there's 2 that are responding slow. So Rocky 11 and 13, let's just kick them over. This is one of the nice things about our lab is oh, gotta reconnect to all this crap because I've been out of town, so all my stuff's disconnected. All right, and then we'll connect to this, and we will connect back to this. We'll get everything reconnected up. So, and then 9 and 25. So we have 11 and 13 not responding. Let's go look at 11. And 11 and 13 are likely down. Oh, they're out of memory. Okay, so reboot. This is one of the nice things about having a bunch of stateless nodes is we're just going to kill the nodes off. That'll be our first troubleshooting. If we need to go deeper, we will, but our first step in any of these is pull them out of the compute pool. If you have if we had a job scheduler or something that was working with these, it would still be potentially sending jobs there, but it would probably stop and it would put them into an unknown state. They put them in the state called unknown, and no jobs probably would have landed on this except for the ones that had originally failed. And what we do, we put them in an unknown state, or we move them to a different partition if we're using a tool like Slurm or any of these big high-performance compute tools. Platform LSF is a big one. Slurm. It's one of those other ones. What's the one we use at NOAA? Can't remember its name right off. It's 10 days on vacation. Rock your brain a little bit. Let's go with 9. We gotta go check 9 real quick. How's he doing? It's interesting that he's a different behavior on his response, but he's the same out of memory. So that's an out of memory. And then Hammer 25. Hammer 25 is the one that I mostly have been beating up. So that's probably acceptable. After this round of the course, we're going to change the way that people log into the Professional Linux Users Group servers. Everybody's going to come in on a different set of nodes and through a different architecture, which I could show you guys that too if anybody's interested. The console is not responding at all. So, oh, is this the one? Let's force reboot him, but I think we were messing with this one the other day, so I think he may not come up until I fix him over on the werewolf side of things, so that's not a big deal. All right. So, as I said, we'll talk about these just so you guys can see what we're talking about. We had a scan that we did in Unit 5 on a bunch of the systems in the home lab. And then the goal was then you would come over here and you would look at the way that Ansible allows you to build an inventory, right? Ansible essentially takes 2 types of inventory inputs that you can use. You can either use these basic INI, or some people call them INI files, or you can use YAML. I know people who prefer YAML formats, but probably because they come from programming backgrounds. I prefer this flat style, and you might say, Scott, why? And it's because when I build and when I generate things out of like I'll use Ansible to go and do an API call against satellite and pull all my servers out. This is a much easier format for me to do as a guy who doesn't do all of that printf stuff as much as other people do. This is probably easier for some of you and some of you guys that already generate those kind of things in that way. For me, I just like doing flat files like this. So you'll always find mine flat like this. But the point is, Ansible can take the input in either the INI or the YAML format, and then it can output in 3 different formats. So if you ever say, show me the inventories, it'll show you it in either YAML, JSON, or this other one called graph. There's a graph output, which doesn't really align with anything, except that I think it kind of looks nice if you were going to feed stuff over to project managers. Here, I'll show you guys real quick what that looks like. In fact, we have a killer coda that walks you through that, so I'll pull that up right here real quick. We're going to go check those again here in a second. Let's go to killer coda, and I haven't been in here in a while, so I'm surprised it's still got me logged in. Let's go look at what this looks like. It's under Ansible. There's a whole Ansible lab on this, so inventories, or what we call the host file, right? If anybody wants this, it's right here. And boom. And boom. All right. I also have this other, it's interesting, I don't see any of my plugins, but I have a plugin for Dark Reader, which we can turn everything dark. Boom. There we go. It's probably easier for some of you. You know, it's a little easier for you guys to see. But let's go ahead and start this. And it says, your team has decided that they need a tool that they can use to control and operate the many servers you have in your environment. That's typically that kind of like maturity in an admin and then also in an engineering team tends to be why the decision to pick up different automation tools happens, right? But for us, we're going to evaluate Ansible. Other people use Puppet and Chef, and there's all kinds of, what's that, Salt? People like Salt. I'm not telling you have to change the one you use. I'm just using this lab to show you guys how you might do inventories for this one, which is Ansible. There's a reason there's a whole cult of Ansible, and I'll probably show it to you here as you're looking at this. We'll definitely talk about it later, but I always joke around about the cult of Ansible, because once people see how easy it is, they're like, it's that easy? And I'm like, yep, now you already know more about it than I do. So, all right. But anyway, so here's the inventory. If you can't get your inventory down, you can't admin servers. And you say, Scott, that sounds kind of mean. I'm not being mean about it. I'm just telling you, if you don't have a handle on all the servers in the environment, you can't control them. It would be like if I dropped a cop from Los Angeles in Detroit, and he didn't know where all the streets were, and he didn't know where all the buildings were. And I was like, all right, police this area. And he'd be like, all right, as such, I can do what police do, but I can't make sure. Or if I dropped you in and told you to secure a building, I don't know, some of you guys play like Call of Duty or something with like the zombies or something, and I'm like, all right, protect all this, but you don't know where all the doors and windows are. Well, that would be a real shitty game, right? Because people would be getting in there all the time. It's the same kind of idea, and inventories are the same way. If I only know about 980 of my 1,000 servers, I don't have control of those servers, and I do not have security of those servers. You can't say you have security if you don't have a good inventory. That's like a #1 rule of security. So this is also a #1 rule of automation. But anyways, in this one, we're going to make a little file with these servers in it. And I've got a solution down here, but if you were to try to figure it out from here, you might do something like this. You might say, okay, I'm in this directory. I haven't done any Linux in a while. I've been on vacation, and I have not even like touched anything. So we'll call this our host file, right? So hosts. And in here, we're going to say, okay, I want to make something that looks like this. I need a grouping of servers, right? That's going to be the host group within this inventory file. And then I'm going to have control plane and node 01. And according to this, that's all I need. I can have ungrouped things. I can have things that are grouped like this. And then I can have some other grouping of things. And that's the only way that the INI file, or any file, again, as some people say it, works. So escape :WQ. And what we can do then is we can see, does Ansible parse this correctly? If I say Ansible, and then I say in there, let's cat hosts. I say Ansible, which should be a tool on my system because it's been installed. And I say that I want to use the servers host group from the file, and I'll be explicit hosts, right? And I just say I want to run the module shell, and I want to give the argument uptime, right? Just send the uptime over to both of those. And if Ansible reads that and parses that correctly, it'll go hit the nodes that are in there. Now that right there might look really simple, and it is. But do you think that if you had that, you could put like 1,000 nodes in the servers group? I think most of you could probably figure that out, right? Ali Muhammad, you said, is this part of sysadmin course? This is, I'm just kind of warming up on the stuff that we're doing for later today. So I am looking at the sysadmin course, yes, but this is not the course. We have a recorded version of the course, and I'm going to be teaching it in about 4 hours, almost 4 hours. So it'll be 3 o'clock my time for you guys. So no, I'm not. So Ali, you're not missing anything if you're planning on coming to the course later in the Discord. Anybody that doesn't know about the course, it's free down in the Discord, right? It's here, right? Boom. Sysadmin course. We are in Unit 14, so we're getting near the end of that. I wouldn't tell people necessarily that they'd want to start if they're at the end of it. But I mean, people could come and hang out and stuff. Yeah, anybody's welcome to come. But as far as like completing the course, you guys would just be kind of hanging out with us and working on it at your own leisure, if you will. So we've input it in one of the two ways. By the way, guys, this is the documentation for Ansible, right? We're looking. This is one of the things that we talk about as admins and engineers and stuff. Like, what we should do, guys, is we should read the docs, right? Read the field manual, RTFM. It doesn't mean field, right? But read the manual, right? And if you don't want to get your head bitten off by senior engineers when you first start, and if you don't want to get, your manager thinking that you're incompetent, it's not that you can't, guys, you can definitely ask questions, and there is a very good way to escalate problems and systems. But one of the things that has to be done is you've at least read the manual. If you're going to get a task from a senior engineer or principal engineer, and then you're going to turn around and the first thing you're going to do is go, well, what's an API? And they're going to be like, motherfuck, I can't work with this guy. Because there's some things you just got. Or have you guys ever seen the LT, I don't know, let me Google that for you? That's the same concept. You're like, guys, look, we can all sit here and have lunch together, but I can't sit here and feed all of you. I don't have time for that. And there are things that only, obviously have to be answered, or there's tribal knowledge and ways that systems have been set up. And maybe you need to understand the reason this or this was decided as the way that this right here has to, how did somebody decide to choose these? That's something that you couldn't find from the documentation, sure. And there are reasons that somebody, again, I pick this because it's simple for me and that's how I generate my inventories. Other people might pick this because that's what works for them. I don't know. There's different reasons to do it. But anyway, so we're over here. We're looking at this. Keep going through this. Here's the solution. It'll tell you to just put the file like that. And we hit check. And then it says verify connectivity to all hosts. So we're going to use the module ping to do the same thing that I just did, where I did uptime. And we're going to use the module ping for that. But here's the thing. That module ping is not doing ICMP ping, right? This ping right here. Where's he at? Right? That is ICMP ping. That is an ICMP echo being sent to another machine. That machine is listening and accepting ICMP traffic off of a TCP IP network, and it is responding back with an ICMP echo reply, right? That's the process that's happening here. That is exactly not what's happening here. This is an SSH connection via Ansible. This is then Python microcode being pushed over and run on that far machine. And essentially, it's really just printing out ping and pong. That's all it does. And I'm going to prove that to you here in a second, but that's how it's different. Sending, you said, we have an internal wiki labeled how to ask questions. Yeah, I think that's because here's the thing. You want the juniors to be able to go and talk to the seniors, and you want the seniors to have a structured way to talk back to them without just being like, like this isn't worth my time and just flipping out and stuff. So there has to be, it's almost like a way to do that properly. And the thing is, you just don't want to be asking things that are not referenceable, right? Not something like if I went to a senior, if I was touching Ansible for the first time in a company, never done it before, I would not want to go to somebody and be like, hey, how do we do it? Or I would not want to say, hey, how does Ansible's inventories work? That would not be the way I would do it, right? I would probably go and find. So a question I might ask is, hey, where are all the Ansible inventories kept? Where are we running Ansible off of? And somebody would say like, oh, this server over here, and I'd be like, cool, put that in my little notes, right? Always have a notebook open, right, or something. Especially if I'm asking questions, I always have a notebook, and I do. You guys have seen this. I physically have an actual notebook, right, that I use as an engineer, even though I mostly can just go in and do systems. So I see stuff here I got to work on, but yeah. So this is my notebook. It's good. Pretty nice one. And then I would go look in there at all the normal places. Etsy Ansible hosts. It used to be Etsy Ansible hosts and then a subdirectory of hosts. So this is an updated. The doc used to be an Etsy Ansible hosts. But anyways, so I would ask that, and then I would go look it up myself. But then I might maybe ask why we chose one or the other after I had looked at it for a little bit. But that would not be something I'd do like up front. All right, so let's prove that this ping behavior that I'm talking about here is not ICMP ping. And how would I prove that? Well, I would go to this command, and Ansible has these other options we can give where we get more verbose. And let's be as verbose as we can, which, by the way, is going to blow up our screen with a whole bunch of blue, right? We get, so we've set our verbosity to be all the way up. I don't know if it goes higher than that. But what's happening here is we're hitting both of those systems, and it's telling us everything about what's happening. So as we called the command, we're looking at our Ansible core, our local config file. If we had a config file in this directory, anything even hidden.cfg could be read as a config file. And we can set Ansible parameters, like for how much we fork, which is, by the way, a tunable parameter that's super useful. Because Ansible right now, by default, only goes with 5 forks. If you have to hit 1,000 servers, 5 forks isn't going to do it for you. But if you have to hit 1,000 servers and you do all 1,000 servers at the same time, you're probably going to crush most servers, right? I used to hit about 2,500 nodes at NOAA when I was first building out their systems, and the boxes I was running off of had 256 cores and 2 terabytes of RAM. They were beefy servers. They were as beefy as they come in the 2020 timeframe. And they could not handle, they could only do so much in their memory, right? There's probably some threading optimization there that's not really, set up with Ansible as well. So there are certain limitations and ways that you're going to have to run things. And we can talk about tuning at another time if anybody wants to go deep on that, because I've had to do some interesting stuff with Ansible. Most of you guys that have stuck around know that I inverted the way that Ansible runs out there so that all the servers pull and configure themselves. And by doing that, I can make all the servers stand up in 5 minutes. The original way, I never got it under 4 hours. I never got, even with multiple deployable Ansible cores running and sending jobs out, and I even did it with Kubernetes where I'd have different individual pods standing up and running forks of Ansible. I couldn't do it. But when I switched the way that Ansible worked and pulled the configuration, it was under 5 minutes on all the servers. So basically every server was responsible for standing himself up. It's like how everybody has to dress themselves in the morning. One person doesn't do it for them. That wouldn't make any sense, right? There's no way to do that faster. Even if I did help everybody get dressed, it wouldn't be any faster. You have to do it yourself, right? I don't know why that's an example. It sounds like a really bad example. But we can go here and take the output of that original one and throw it in there. Here, let's go look at what's happening, though. I meant to show you guys what was happening. As you look at the blue, right, it says that we called Ansible core. We looked at if we had any plugins and all these other things. Newer, more modern Ansible works different than older ones did. There's a module search path where there used to be, Ansible used to come with all 3,000 or so modules in it. Now it's much smaller and you have to pick the different modules you want to download. That's in there's a newer version. Yeah, I think it's anything probably past like 2.9 or something. You guys look it up if you're interested. I don't know. But the point is you have less collections by default, and now there's a collection location, and then you can down, like, let's say you were using F5, or was it Big 5 or F5, whatever that networking thing is. They've got a whole bunch of Ansible collections that you can download and run because maybe you use their equipment. I have no use for that. But in the original, in the older versions of Ansible, you used to get everything that was downloadable, and they decided to make it much more modular. We're only going to download the things we need, right? Anyways, host list declined parsing root hosts. So there were some problems there. And then that was with whatever, it tried to use. And then it used the INI plugin, and it worked, right? So then it found that. And then it started calling over these SSH connections, like I said, to see if it could get to, in this case, control plane, which is itself, and if it could run a bin sh. Just could it run a shell, right? Then come down here, and it did the same thing for node 01. So it just did like a test connection, and could it run. Then it came down, and you're going to see that it's going to SSH. It's going to make a directory down in root Ansible temp. And then if it can do that, it's also going to make another directory, and then it's going to go sleep. So it tests to make sure that it has at least write capabilities and that kind of stuff. And it's going to do it in both places. Then it's going to come down, and you're going to see it do an SSH, but it's going to actually do an SCP as it copies. Oh, yeah, so it finds some platform information, some other stuff, whatever. And then you're going to see it push over its microcode. So anyways, the point is everything's right here for you guys to see if you need to dig in and look at it. Where's it at? Where's the Ansible? So instead of SSH, it's going to exec the SFTP, and it's going to securely copy over the file. Where's the file at? We used ping, so you should see it actually push, Ansible z ping.py. So it's still in the SFTP when it's doing the put here. And then it's going to also do it on the other one. When it's all done, it cleans all that up too, right? So Ansible is like a scaffolding, is the way that I kind of think of it, around how it does executions, right? Whereas before we used to use shell scripts, and we would push something and then we would execute it. So this is doing all of that under the hood, right? And then look, it's going to go in there, and it's going to actually, you're going to see it just SSH and then execute the Python. So it found a version of Python, and then it runs that Python that it pushed over, that little Python microcode. It's like Ansible's not doing something super deep or magical, guys. In fact, Michael Pessa, who's around some of the times, he and I have had to go in there and modify those on some of my internal systems for some of the ways that my AWX works. We had to go and modify some of those, and it's just Python under the hood, right? And here's standard out, and it shows you what it was doing. All right. So anyways, all that to say, your team's going to be adding some new servers, but you haven't put them in the environment yet. So let's update this. Whoops. So we got this host file, and we're going to update it with some of this other information. We're going to make a test env. Whoops. And we're going to make that these values here. We can actually just grab all this. Right? And test env has these two new nodes. These nodes don't exist in this environment, but they would be coming, let's say, in a future environment. And then we have a variable over here. So the variables type equals client. You can assign variables like this. You can also assign variables like this. So prod environment has them over here. So those are all there. And then now this is a host group called non-prod. And the children of non-prod are servers and test environment. So what's happening here? Servers and test underscore environment, rather. These two groups can also be called by calling non-prod. So you can nest your groups, basically, right? Which is a very common programming function. It's something that people do in all kinds of things. But there's one thing that I didn't show you here that we could add, which is like this. I could say servers, vars, right? And I could add more vars here, so I can say type equals, maybe we always say env equals, and env may be a keyword, so we might not be able to use it. You can look up all the keywords. I'm pretty sure env is safe. And let's say env for servers is always dev, let's just say. And what I should be able to do then is go and look at some inventory stuff. So I can use Ansible inventory, which is another tool, against that and have it list everything out. So now we see, here's all our host vars, here's control plane, environment, dev, control plane, type client, control test. So here's a bunch of variables that are there. We can see that all has the children of everything. Non-prod has these children, prod has these children, servers has these children, and then test environment has these children. And yeah, control plane has the environment dev because we gave it that, and node 01 also has the environment dev because we gave it that. So my point is we can add in. There's different ways to do this. If this looks more clean to you, do it. If this looks more clean to you, do that. It's whatever you want. The net effect of this and the net effect of this are exactly the same. Well, I mean, except for the type. Type is the name of the variable here, and environment is the name of the variable there. But there's that. So there's that. Hey, thanks for the follow, by the way. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Real 10. Hopefully this stuff's good. All right, so I only have a little bit longer because, by the way, I do have to meet with my college students in a little bit here. So I'm going to do that. I'll take a little bit of break. And then we're actually going to run this as the real course here in a little bit down in Discord. We don't record those courses, right? The things that we do in the Discord don't get recorded. Well, you know, like unless people record them. But I don't record them as part of like the normal this stuff. But for people that are interested in seeing this, we do have the recorded versions of, like, I recorded them the day after. So this is like the Unit 14 recording from back when we originally did it. So if anybody needs to watch it and you're like, oh shoot, I want to watch this, but I don't have time right now, this is the link to that. Also, that's the link to the free book. This is our free book that the guys put together for the admin course. We're in Unit 14. There's 2 more left. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. Oh, and they added the Socratic Linux. Let's see how this is going. So they're working on... Yeah. So now when we do our Socratic Linux together and we work through stuff, we can actually pop it up over here. And we can keep adding more and more questions to this. Yeah, there we go. I have a lot of stuff that we can keep adding to this. So if you guys have never done Socratic Linux with me, it's a way for us to test ourselves, right? Like, what do I need to know better? What do I need to spend more time with? And we kind of do it together as a group when we run through it. So, all right. Anyway, so we're doing this lab, and then now I said earlier that I'd show you guys this. So here's when I do list by default. If anybody knows by looking at that what that is a very common language. It's a what we call a semi-structured language, right? It's not non-structured. And it's not structured, right? It's a semi-structured language called, maybe the JQ will help some people think about it, right? But it's a JSON, or JSON as people like to call it. It's JSON, but that is, and then if you use JQ, you can query components of this out, right? And this is actually a big part of where the power of this comes from, is that I can dig in directly to something if I know the hierarchy of the variables that are involved. So that makes it super useful. So that's one way to output the list that was input as INI or any format. This is the one that I told you guys I didn't necessarily like. I don't like this one for systems work. But this might look good if you wanted to show it to, like, I don't know, I guess like a manager might like that. They might put that in a slide deck or something. I don't know. I don't necessarily like this one for all kinds of reasons. But then the one that I think a lot of people like, because this is the only format of these ones that can be fed back into Ansible later. So if you were to go to somebody else's Ansible and output in this format here, which is YAML, this is a perfectly acceptable one for you to then take to maybe your system, plug it in, and run it as a test against those set of systems. So this is the only one that's output from Ansible and can be re-input as the exact host group again, right? If that makes sense. This right here is the exact same net effect as this right here. These are the same file to Ansible. This right here and this right here. Put them on the same page so you guys can see them. Maybe a little smaller. little smaller so you guys can see them for now. But that's YAML, and that's INI, but it's the same file to Ansible for Ansible's purposes. And again, maybe you like generating stuff like this with printf, or you've got some kind of tool that you like to use, and maybe that's already part of your normal workflows and that works for you. I am almost always pulling stuff with simple API calls, and I'm using either Python or Bash and just hitting things and pulling it out, or I'm pulling it directly with an Ansible call, and that's the format that works for me for when I want to generate my files. So, all right, but that was kind of the first question, was how would you build an inventory? What was the next question here? It was noticing drift on your server configuration. So drift is an interesting thing, and I think we even have one of these now specifically on enterprise drift. No, I guess we really don't, but the web server one kind of works for enterprise drift. And it says you've been noticing drift in your server configuration. So what drift is drift is the idea that from the time that we first build a server and release it to the team, the dev team, or the prod team that's running it, they've got their application code or whatever that was deployed. And there was probably some working on the back end with the Linux engineers to deploy that as it got pushed out. What'll happen is, excuse me, what'll happen is immediately things start changing. You push 5 servers off and you say, really, immediately? Yeah, some servers get hit more by the load balancer than others, so their logs fill up faster, or they are hitting some kind of limit on back-end SAN connectivity before the other ones because they're establishing, maybe your round robin or your load balance process hasn't been worked out yet, so only the first 2 are taking most of, there's all kinds of things that cause configuration drift. Maybe a user from the dev team tries to log in on one of the servers, sends in a ticket, and one of the admins just fixes that one server, not knowing it's part of a group. You might say, that sounds really terrible, Scott. And I'd say, yeah, it does. You guys need to tighten up your processes in many ways. But obviously, these are things that as we're working through, things happen and we find out. Well, configuration drift is this idea that we can use Ansible or use an automation tool to check things and fix them, right? So on this one, we're going to start this one, and then I'll make this hopefully more apparent here in a second. But we're going to deploy something. The tool is going to be Apache. It's a web server. Most of you know what that is. If you're hanging out here with me, you probably know what a web server is. But we're going to go look at Ansible, and then I'm not going to make you look at any of these other things down here because I'm not really trying to show you that right now. And we're going to run this playbook to build the web environment for our teams, right? So we're going to install Apache. We're going to build out a little web environment for our team. Then we're going to go check out that web environment that we built. If you want to do this lab another time and really dig in on it, I guess you can. But when this is done, what we will have is, we weren't done yet. Oh, wait a second here. All right, that's what we're going to have when we're done. We're going to be able to curl port 8080 on a machine and get a dev page back. We're going to be able to curl 8081 and get a test page back. Then we're going to curl 8082 and get a QA page. So we did these things, and you can go look at how that's all done. It's pretty easy. But then they ask you, hey, can you delete, right? They say, we want to redeploy only parts of the environment. So on one of these sets of servers that we give you, can you just do like, let's say dev and QA and get rid of test or something like that? And then what will happen here is there's this other individual one, right? And if we go look at it, it cleans them up and just gets rid of certain ones. And the one we're going to remove here is we're going to get rid of the test environment. So let's run that real quick. Again, this lab has a whole lot that we're not going into right now, but we're going to delete just that one section. And then I'm going to go run again. Is my 8080 working? Yes. Is my 8082 working? Yes. So dev and QA are there, but test is not. Okay, so think about this for a second. If I didn't expect, so the change that I just caused right there, I planned it, we're talking about it, we knew that we were going to lose that one node. What if that wasn't expected by like management? What if just one of the devs put that in and asked for, one of the sysadmins to change things, and the sysadmin not knowing that that person didn't really have permission to make that call, just went ahead and deleted that, turned that port off, blocked it on the firewall. There's all kinds of things we could have done, but in this case, they removed it from the configurations, right? And we can go look at that if we want. But the point is, we now have configuration drift. The servers are no longer in the way that they were originally set up. Only on this one node, too. Like, let's say we had 30 nodes, and that admin just got asked by this one developer, junior dev, on this one system, and he didn't know that there were 29 other systems that he really should have been making the change on as well. So now nobody catches it, right? These are the kind of problems. This is actually a big part of why we have this sysadmin course, the one that's right above here, is it's not all just technical stuff, guys. There's other things that happen in the admin world. We've got to keep this fleet of servers running, and the servers have all kind of too many cooks sometimes. Every one of your admins has all the power, right? So maybe you have a process. This is something you could implement. This is actually in the security engineering course we talk about this, but we could just have this redeployed in the environment every 15 minutes. And watch what this is going to do. You'll see Ansible make the changes where it needs to. This is only going to make the change to fix the one that was deleted. This is a very like nuclear option, and when I say nuclear, I mean we're not doing anything smart here. We're just fucking final result. Just wipe it and start over. That's what this option was actually going to do. No matter what had changed, it was just going to plow it over and make it the original environment again. And if I deleted all of it and I ran this, it would plow it over and make it the original environment again. Well, what if an engineer was doing something there? What if one of the devs legitimately had a reason in this environment to do that? Well, that's why we built that other tool, to be able to remove the things. I guess one of the things I'm trying to say here is that we have a tool to deploy the environment, and now we have a tool to change individual component pieces of it. But maybe that doesn't work with the business. So then the business side of things, the technical side of this stuff, I don't want to call it easy, but I'm going to say like the technical side of this stuff that we as engineers get paid for is it's something you can learn and do. And then you have to be able to apply it in the right locations for the business, if that kind of makes sense. Because the business is, I don't know, like we're engineers, but like just sitting around engineering probably doesn't pay us. We got to go work for some company selling, music on the internet or something, right? We got to go work for them, or we got to go work for one of the big FANG companies selling social media and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But we are, my point is the technical side of this stuff can be done, but it can be at odds with what's happening from like the business side or the trouble tickets and all that kind of crap. Anyways, all right. Hopefully that's clear as mud for everybody. And it says, look at you learning Ansible. You created a playbook to deploy a web server. Then you changed it a little bit. And then in our case, because we wanted to talk about fixing configuration drift, we blew over the top of it. So, all right. And then let me go look at, so in the background of this discussion, I have what we're talking about for this course. And this is from the time from when we originally did it. So it was December 14th of last year. And let's go look. So this stuff, yep. That was the week before there was a security discrepancy and then a new hardened image, so we built those. And then this week was inventory, ad hoc commands, and playbook testing. So it's very simple, like I think the first 6 labs or so from our course. And then people should be working on their projects. All right. What is Ansible? Install your tools, build your environment. So, we talked a little bit about how Ansible works. We didn't go super deep on it right now. We didn't talk about installing it. We just had it installed already. But we did build our inventory, and then we needed to run our workloads or playbooks, right? Workload is like a higher name for like what would be a playbook or a task or a, I don't know, fucking recipe or whatever for your different, and everybody calls it different. And then I've got in here, I talk about the central problem of like systems engineering, which is consistency and timeliness. We need to build servers fast, because people want servers fast. So we got to get our server builds down. Typically, we want our server builds, if we're doing automation, under 5 minutes. And if we're in the cloud, it should be even faster than that, which then we get into consistency, which is they have to be built the same exact way every time, which actually lends itself to using automation anyways, because it's easier to do it that way. But back to that timeliness thing, then there's two ways that we tend to talk about building servers, and I'll probably go into that a little bit during the course later. But the two components of it are pre-baking things in. Things are already there, so then the servers just get stood up from like a base image that has things already, components installed, that kind of stuff. We're not waiting for DNF or Yum to update for 45 fucking minutes. That's insane. So what we do instead is we have that all pre-baked in. So if patching went this week, if we just patched all the servers in the environment up to a certain thing, we also baked and patched up the golden image, deployed it and tested it, made sure it still worked, and then now that's our base image. And then the other part of it after the pre-baking is what we call personalization, or some people call it like AWS, they call it not host configuration, it's I have to go look that up, but there's a term for it. Not host data, not node data. I always think of it as personalization after. It's the thing that stands up. It's actually the bootstrap is what it's called. So it's what comes up after the server has been pre-baked. So it's typically like pre-baking and bootstrapping. Yeah. And then Ansible fit into systems administration. So we talk about where that kind of fits. So what is Ansible is here. These are the things it's doing. This is how it works. We touched on that a little bit here. I'm not going through the course right now. Again, this is already recorded for the course if you guys want to see me talk about it. And then there's also the other part. By the way, since I'm sitting here in studio mode, I'm off studio mode now. If anybody needs to interrupt me, just do an exclamation mark ask. Oh, wait, hold on. Not yet. Hold on. Can't do it yet. It wouldn't work yet. Once StreamerBot comes up, it should work. Give me a second here. I don't know why I didn't have StreamerBot running. All right. Anyways, if you do exclamation mark ask, it'll interrupt me and let me know. But this is some things to understand. And then how do we install our tools? How do we verify our install on the system, right? We do have some labs and stuff. Building out our inventory. We have all kinds of things that we can do within the inventory that we're going to look at today. And by the way, guys, one of the reasons that when I do the live course in the Discord, I do not follow exactly what's recorded. And you might say, well, why? Well, because I want to add value in the live discussions for anybody, answer questions, that kind of stuff. But then also, you can always go look back at the one I recorded from late last year, so you guys have all this other stuff. So that's a big part of this for me. All right, so running our workloads, or again, workloads are analogous to whatever tools or things that you had. In this case, Ansible, it's called playbooks. We call them playbooks and tasks, right? But workloads is the generic term that you're going to hear for this in automation. Central problem of engineering, that's the consistency and timeliness. And I give a couple of answers, or I give a couple of versions of this. Like Steve sets up a server build procedure and hands it over to Dave. Dave does it a little differently or gets an older version of it. It's just a mess. Steve's got a new version of the software. Now, some of you are going to immediately say, well, hold on a second. Why isn't he pulling it from GitHub? You guys understand, right? Like, I don't know. Like, it's funny because I'll hang out on streams and I'll tell people, like, hey, if you're a Linux engineer and Linux admin, you need to go learn your Git, right? I tell people that. You need to at least be able to pull down Git. But I hope you guys understand, like, probably if I had to guess, like, half of admin teams are not using that on a daily basis still. The engineers, you guys are like software engineers and that kind of stuff, you guys use that shit all the time. But like Linux engineers and Linux admins, they didn't come from that. That's only I probably only started using Git in like 2018. And I've been doing this for like 22 years. So what is that, only like the last 7 years of me doing this? And I would call me a very early adopter of Git in my engineering space. Because now I think it's much more like anybody doing like SRE stuff, they're all doing it. But like, you got to think of it as like the Linux engineers and the Linux admins, we're like down in the basement, man. We're not up there working on what the actual, what's facing the customers. We're doing our system stuff. So anyways, where I'm going with that is, this is not as far-fetched as you might think. You might be like, everything there is solved by Git. It is. But not every team's doing that yet. People are still passing. There's still one centralized server somewhere in a lot of companies, and God, I know that this is still in very big Fortune 500 companies. There's still one server sitting there somewhere that all the admins jump into and get the stuff that they need. And if you're not working on the most current version of it, I'm 100% sure that's in at least like 3 companies I could name that are like top 500 companies in the U.S. So, and I bet if I did like an anonymous poll in our Discord and the guys that I know that do that stuff, I bet I could find more. In fact, one of the guys, I'm not going to out anybody, one of our guys just recently said that about a huge company that's like one of Fang, like part of the Fang stuff. And I know he works for them. And he mentioned how everything was fucking held together with duct tape and other shit. I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised. That's right. Anyway, timeliness, same kind of thing. Steve can kick off local scripts and build stuff in an hour because he knows where it is. And even if he had an internal repo, he's the only one that maybe knows even where he put his new stuff. This happens, guys. You got to come through and fix stuff from other people, or you got to go take over their repo when they leave or something. And this is one of the reasons we never delete anybody's home directories ever. In engineering, we just store them off. Because sometimes you're going to have to go grep through that directory for GitHub or something and find where, you know, that is. And it's not always GitHub. There's internal ones like Bitbucket and stuff like that your company can either self-host or have companies control. Talk about ITIL and DevOps. So as I'm showing you guys this stuff, we often talk about different terminology and things that I tell you guys that are outside of the scope of the course. The systems admin course talks about Linux, and then the ITIL and DevOps methodology and stuff like this is just to kind of bring people that are going to be admins and engineers up to speed on things that people are kind of doing in the industry to try to solve these problems, right? So if we are trying to build systems, what are the problems, and how do we try to fix them? And then as we get into like how does Ansible fit in that, right? Ansible is a big part of like continuous integration and continuous deployment models. If you use it right, you don't have to, but this is how I've used it in my career. I can always be building down in I almost always have like a Scott branch. So if you guys ever see any of my branches and stuff in my Git, if I ever pull it up, I've always got a Scott work branch, and that's what my AWX or my tower is hitting off of, or I guess Ansible automation platform. That's what it's hitting off of, and I'm always spinning. I can just keep running stuff all the time there. And then when I'm ready, it flips over to prod, or it gets pulled up to the prod branch, right? Or main, right? Used to be master, now it's all main. Anyways, and then how does this work? Hopefully your team writes good code, it gets put up, and it gets run, and then it comes out, right? Some type of visibility. And the better you kind of go through the cycle, the better things work for you. All right, and then these are our labs for the week. So these are the things I'm going to have the guys doing in the course later. These labs map to, so that's lab 1 of, where's it at? Right here. Real quick, I'll show you guys, if anybody cares. Here's our Ansible labs. Here's a link to them. And again, we're not really doing the course yet. We're doing the course in a couple hours. But here's installing Ansible. Here's and versions. Here's generating an inventory right here. Here's running an ad hoc command, so that's that third one. And then that's ad hoc again. Here's building the playbook, running a playbook. And then pulling a playbook from GitHub to run it would also be down here in playground and patching. So, yeah, those are, yeah. That's good. So that's all the things that I'm going to be kind of showing in the course later. I would go through it now, but I got to get off in a few minutes to go yell at my college students, and then there's my info for people that need to get a hold of me. All right. That is good. The book, if anybody needs the book, get rid of that. The book is free, so if you guys ever are like, oh, I want to go take their book and just print it as a PDF and keep it for myself, you could do that. It would be right here. It actually it turns into one big long page here. And let's see how long this page is. It's literally like super long. But here's the link to that if you guys need it. So that's the book. I got that linked up. There's another book on security engineering, so I think if I go to, here's a security course too. So there's a security course if anybody wants that as well. And these are all up in the Discord, guys. Discord is free. You guys can hang out in there, and we're at almost 4,100 people in there. So that's getting, I mean, that's moving along. It's kind of quiet when I was on vacation, but people were still down there talking and working on stuff. If I hop on later today after the stream, I might do, or after the course later, I may stream some resume stuff. Some of the guys were asking me to look at resumes and that kind of stuff, and when I have a little more time, I'll do that. We also sometimes do down in the Discord. The goal of the group is to get you guys into systems engineering, system admin work, but in Linux space, by the way. And to that end, we do sometimes hold just like mock interviews and stuff like that, so people can do that. Because there's a value to hearing how you would answer something that you weren't ready to answer. It's not like you get to sit around and think about what I'm about to ask you, right? And that's something that you can practice and get better at. We can also help you do kind of like the Toastmaster thing where it's like, hey, I'm not very good at public speaking, and I say a lot, and we can help you with that. Because I was a Toastmaster when I was younger. That's how I learned how to public speak. So, okay, there we go. So let's go check our lab environment again while we're hanging out here. We got this stuff, got this, build our inventory. Let's see if the environment's a little more clean than it was earlier. If anything doesn't respond, let's go see why. 25's still down. I suspect 25's down because he has a, yeah, he's got this other in it. So we put him to Tumbleweed. We were like testing some stuff with him, and I didn't get him finished. So it might be over here that I did it. What's going on here, server? It's way slower. Mr. Chie said, is Ansible the next planned course? Yeah, I'm going to do a full automation one, and Ansible is going to be like the backbone of that. And that's the next course I'm planning right now. In fact, I can show that to you guys. I have, like, here's the Linux sysadmin course. So this is the systems admin course. And then back here, we've got the security engineering course. These two are done, right? And then the next one is the automation course, but I only have unit 1 set up. And then I do have to go through the process, which of putting down. So this is the automation for the enterprise, and then it's going to be 16 weeks. So I have that. I've actually done quite a bit of this writing. So if you guys don't know, the way I do, oh, it's going to bug me that I can't. Okay, it won't dock at the top like that, but. Yeah, this will be about 100 lab hours. There's going to be a lot of lab work and about 60 theory hours. So theories are lectures. Well, theory is all the stuff you think about, right? But theory is us talking about it and going back and forth and doing assignments and other stuff. And lab hours are just heads down executing stuff in a lab, right? Which both of these things have a lot of stuff for you guys. When will it start, Mr. TA? I haven't planned that yet. I mean, shoot, like I just did vacation, so it was like now it's the end of July. I am probably going to start this one early September because so guys, if you don't know, the next big thing going on in our Discord is this. The next big thing is we're coming up on our, what you would call, I guess it's our 11th year of running the group and 6th year in Discord. So, you know, that's going to be in early August. So these are all free events to go to, but these only say, it says 26, 42, and 41. When we only had 1,000 people in the server, we had over probably 300 people come through during these 2 days. Now we have like 4,000 people, and I have a whole bunch of different public speakers. I have guys from Space Force coming down, Space Force security guys that are still active, majors. One was a major and one is a major. I have an economist coming who's got his PhD in econometrics, if anybody cares. And he always gives a good talk. My brother Tommy's coming to talk, who does data analytics for a really big insurance company. And his talk last year was so good, man. I might just tell him to do the same talk from last year again. D Pirate Roberts, what are we doing today? We're just, I have to get off here right now because I have a college class to run, well, like college study class to run with my students. And then in 3 hours, this is going to go, which is our Linux sysadmin course. So that's a free course, but we're up in unit 14 of 16. So anybody that shows up to that is probably just going to be hanging out with us. And then we are going to be done with that one here, right early August. And then we're going to go back to planning and then probably get ready for the next course. So that's what we're doing right now. We're just hanging out, talking about the Professional Linux Users Group, which is our group that allows you guys, it says Professional Linux Users Group. Anyways, and and I haven't been on for, I don't know, 10 days or something, so I wanted to hop on and at least talk to some people and see what was going on. Yeah, you guys are welcome to hang out down in the Discord. The bot always rudely welcomes people. But yeah, so yeah, see, I haven't even changed this yet. My major instructional areas and course objectives, I need to align this back to my normal stuff. And so you guys get the syllabus. You guys get all the things that you need. This one is probably going to completely be done out on... Actually, we're probably not going to do any of this stuff. We're probably going to do all of it out on the Killer Coda site. So probably won't do any of this here. And then all the things that I plan, I will add into Killer Coda. So Killer Coda is like the best free site on the web, I think. And let me link this for you guys over on the YouTube side. Here's some of the guys over here. Oh, that is way too long, apparently. There you go. There's the labs over there. Yeah, Boris, I think it'll be good. I think people will like, because, I mean, if any of you guys have ever... My thoughts on it are kind of like this. I don't do enough Python to be really proficient at Python, so I always joke around about how I'm always learning Python. But I use enough Python to be good at it in my daily job when I need it, and to go look at stuff that I did before and go, huh, I did figure that out. All right, I'll just steal that shit from myself, right? Or just steal it from the internet, so I'm okay with that. But it's the same way with like Ansible. If I just were like, hey, let's go do these 5 things this week, none of us would remember any of it by the end of it. But if we do it in a way that we are constantly applying it to like systems admin and systems engineering tasks that you're actually doing, maybe you're throwing in your notebook and then you're applying it, I think people are it's gonna stick a lot better, right? It's this idea that like we talk about this all the time in engineering, like you scratch your own itch. And if you have something that's actually bugging you and you apply a tool to it, you'll never forget that. That will be your tool forever because you used it to fix something you actually needed, right? That, at least that's been my experience. That may not be everybody's experience, but that's mine. No, Boris, tonight, no, sorry, no. Tonight is unit 14 of the Linux course, the Linux admin course, and then we're probably going to start the Ansible course in like early September. So we'll start that again like the other one. D Pirate Roberts, yeah, they host the labs for free. Killer Coda, yeah, they're completely free, and the only trade-off is everybody gets to use them, which I'm fine with. I want as many people to use them as possible. So yeah. So we're probably going to start in September, yeah. Because I have to finish out this course. We're going to do our big meetup where, I mean, guys, I have like, I don't know, I have somewhere between like 10 and 15 public speakers. I actually have a hard time fitting all the slots in right now for all the public speakers. So Pirate, the thing is, yeah, they are the back-end capacity. They do have a paid-for version. Some people like their paid-for version, but you don't need to pay Killer Coda Labs. They are the back end of all of the actual. Let me show you guys. So if you guys don't know, Killer Shell, so killer.sh, right? Killer Shell, where you can go. Let's go look at this. If people wanted to pay, they could, but I just use free membership. There are paid-for versions, and you could pay more. Some people pay a lot. Look at that. I mean, that's can get kind of pricey. But what these guys are is they're the back end. They are tied directly in with the Linux Foundation. So all the testing for CKA and CKAD, these same guys run. So if you know who Kim Woosterkamp is his name, I think it's Wooster. Yeah, there it is. That's a better version of his name, but it's not quite right. But he runs all this stuff, and so I think they're just using their back end extra capacity probably. So, but they do have people can pay membership stuff, but it's free, and I've been using it for years, and I've built many hundred. I built 70 labs now, and by the way, if anybody needs the labs, so if you're like, well, how do I get started on the labs? You could clone my labs and use them, or use my labs to figure it out. They also have their examples of the labs, but here's my labs here, or more correctly put, the Professional Linux Users Group labs are right here, right? And then here's all the labs. And I haven't updated anything in a while, but oh, we updated some Slurm stuff. So Slurm, I remember Slurm was busted 2 weeks ago, and I fixed that up. But I need to add more of all this crap. I need to get more. So Slurm has a really awesome back end. I just remembered something from at the very beginning. I couldn't remember that other scheduler. It's called PBS Pro. Anyways, but Slurm is a scheduler for high performance compute. And one of the things you need to do is you need to either have a MariaDB or like a MySQL backend. We use MariaDB typically and everywhere. Or you have to have a Postgres backend, right? MariaDB tends to be the one that we use. And I need to put together one of the labs for that. Because I have the Slurm 106 is install Slurm, but I want to have that other component so you guys can get the logging and all that other crap. Logging and capacity planning and everything that you might need for that. So, oh shoot, I got to get off here for my stuff. Guys, I will see some of you guys later. You guys are welcome to hang out down in the Discord. And I basically appreciate all you guys coming by and seeing me on my first day back. I will be streaming as we